Hey, what's up? Allison Caffrey here. I am so excited to be with you for part two of the profitability and ops series. Marcel brought the heat yesterday with lots of tips around how to really seek that peak profitability inside of your agency. He talked a lot about capacity planning and pricing. And what I'm here to do is talk a little bit about how we kind of take the other side of the scale here, right? We really need to balance how we're operating to be able to handle some of the changes that are being made here, to affect our profitability. So what I want to talk about is what I like to call the service stabilizer. And it's a really interesting tool to be able to use to really walk through, okay, do I have a service that is repeatable, scalable, consistent, and overall profitable, right? So we want to make sure that we have some of these key elements in place and we start to think through some of these key concepts in order to really gauge whether or not this is something that we are either, first of all, excited to offer long-term. Second of all, that's bringing the most, net profit back to our agency. And then additionally speaking, bringing us obviously the most joy and the best results for our clients. So I'm going to go ahead and pop my screen on here and we can start talking through this. So the service stabilizer really is geared to create a more consistent, scalable, and profitable service. And really what we want to keep in mind here is that we want to create a stable service. And I'm going to define what that exactly is. We also want to define some of the key elements that we might need to implement, because I know a lot of us, especially agency owners, we stumble into our business, right? Because we are in a position of expertise and we get really great results for our clients. And then 6-7 months down the line, all of a sudden we have a handful of contractors working with us, or we have a handful of clients and we just happen to be business owners all of a sudden. And so I'm going to walk you through some of the ways that we can start to generate some consistency here, some key elements, some key tools, and what to do next today, right? Something super simple that we can really, sink our teeth into that you can start to do. So our objective is to give you guys the peace of mind and confidence that your service is going to generate consistent results for the business, and results for the business, meaning more repeat customers, more lifelong customers, and additionally speaking, more profit, right? I mean, for the most part, if we look at kind of profit and cash in general as a tool for the business, and we start to talk about this, and Marcel dove deep into a lot of the tactics, that we can use to assess how, we are spending our money, but really, I think operationally speaking, right, we can start to take a look at, how it exactly is used as a tool in our business and what systems specifically we are funding that may or may not have ever been thought through, may or may not be broken, and not be returning some of the things that we are hoping for, in the business. And so I'm Allison Caffrey. Like I said, this is me at home, which is where I love to spend most of my time. I pride myself in being an operations nerd, but I also really pride myself in being a parent and a business owner, and really trying to, and my best to, juggle both of those things and really be intentional about what type of business I build, in my life. And so obviously comes in a huge part of that. My kind of professional resume, I've been in operations since 2015. I've led 10 plus, agency teams through lots of growth periods. And I've sat as fractional COO for multi 7 and 8 figure businesses. My big mantra is keep things simple, repeat them, and then add on later. I think that we can keep things simple, but then starting to add things immediately seems to clutter up a lot of the initiatives that I've worked on with my clients. And so kind of gaining that big North Star moment and saying, listen, this is what we're going after. This is exactly, what I feel like, we need to have and kind of strip away all the excess stuff. And then usually we're able to come out with surprisingly additional fun, exciting things that happen in the business. I've spoken on this topic. I've led workshops on this topic. I've been around and had operations agency since 2018. So I've been doing this for quite a few years. Something, again, I'm most proud of is I am a mom and I have really worked this into my work-life balance and the way that I am at home. I don't know about a lot of you guys, but I know that obviously we're here to talk about profit and we're here to talk about ops, but additionally, these businesses that we're all running here are part of our life and they're part of our family. And if something is going wrong or the business isn't delivering in a way that seems consistent, that seems comfortable, that generates results, that brings home profit, we aren't able to be with our families in a way that we feel really comfortable with. At least that was true for me. And I feel like focusing on a lot of these efforts, both operationally and really taking a look at some of the key ways that we, visualize data inside of the business, which I know, Marcel talked about quite a bit yesterday. I think my opinion is that this really does help bring things home and really humanize us in a way that makes us separate from our business, right? We're other people. We're not just a business owner. We're not just a developer. We're not just a media buyer, right? We are everything to everyone in some cases, right? Our children and our family members and those types of things. And so being able to meaningfully separate from our business and allow the systems in your business to generate profit at a consistent rate is an incredibly difficult, but mostly simple feat. So like I said, I've worked with a lot of clients and all over the map. Like, a lot of the clients that I've worked with will come to me with a little bit of a different take on perhaps how their business needs to run or some different goals that are going on with them behind the scenes. Maybe they want to open up multiple locations. Maybe they want to exit. Maybe they want to, triple their client load, or maybe they want to launch a new, service, or, bring on a new C-suite level team member. A lot of the same tactics that are used to scale multi-7 and 8-figure businesses are also used to foundationalize operations at like the low 6-figure level. And so I'm going to walk you through a couple of things here. So first and foremost, what is a stable service? I love this book, Atomic Habits. It's probably something that I've for sure read it at least 4 or 5 times. I think that overall, like I could be a little bit better at probably reading it, making it more habitual, I guess, to read it maybe once a quarter, but I am obsessed with habits. And I think stability, even though, like last week, for example, my entire family was out with the stomach flu. And I was just like, what do I do? Like, how can I keep hanging on? And what made me feel better mentally and physically and with work and everything was that I know that at least 85% of the time, my habits are on point. I'm doing it in the gym. I'm absolutely drinking all my water. I'm on my diet. I'm sleeping well. I'm putting in meaningful efforts with work. I'm putting in meaningful efforts with my family. And those types of things, again, if you can build those habits, then all of a sudden when a week comes by and kids get sick and everything rocks you, or maybe you have something crazy wrench, thrown in at work, you are comfortable knowing that even though things might feel a little crazy, you do have that stability and that track record behind you to kind of lean on, right? So that's what we're really looking to build. We're really looking to build that stability that is external of you, external of your, physical being inside of the business. And really what I want to focus on here is just picking one thing. I know a lot of us are in a position right now where maybe we're overdue to create systems, or we feel like maybe it's unapproachable, or we've heard folks describe it maybe a different way. And really what I want to encourage you with is if you can get 1% better over time and you can really create some longevity here, you're going to beat out, 90% of business owners who go belly up because they don't figure this stuff out. And so just pick one thing. The way to master more things in the long run is just to simply focus on one thing right now. So if you're doing this alongside with me and you're really kind of working through this, I'd like you and encourage you to kind of start thinking through, okay, what is the one thing I can improve? And I start thinking through this. Again, start simple, get fancy later. But my biggest thing, and one of the things that I know comes out of a lot of agency owners' strategy sessions here with me, is onboarding. A huge, huge, huge thing. And I know also too with, Marcel and I are good friends, working with him and chatting through a lot of things that his clients are going through as well. Like, one of the biggest things that agency owners, I think, when I start to kind of like unpack the operational, suitcase that is their business, onboarding is probably one of the biggest places that they can start to tighten up to save some money. And so getting a really clear onboarding process together is going to be instrumental for you for several reasons. I think that first and foremost, obviously, it can return to you some time back, right? If you're kind of going back and forth in your project management tool and stuff seems mismanaged, or you feel like you don't know where to find a client onboarding document, or you don't have an intake form for them to fill out to kind of streamline things get misplaced. Administrative overhead starts to ramp up. And especially if we're not tracking some of those things, like Marcel mentioned in his last video, that can creep up on us really, really fast from a profit margin perspective. And so trying to eliminate the most administrative friction in your onboarding process as humanly possible to make things really streamlined, I think first and foremost is going to be decrease headache operationally, right? We can start to talk about all that work-life balance stuff again. But then additionally, right, you're getting some literal time back to your agency, especially if you're billing by the hour, especially if you've got somebody who is, working on client projects, on a contracted basis, those types of things. You can start to put that money back in the agency's pocket. And then finally, speaking from a buyer journey perspective, right? These folks who are coming in with you are having a much better experience through a well-curated, well thought out, systematic onboarding process that feels really, really intentional instead of being in a position where they kind of feel like this is an administrative headache, right? I mean, I know a lot of us have experienced onboarding processes on both sides of the coin, and I'm not here to call anybody out or point any fingers, but I mean, I even have things in my onboarding process that I really should probably be updating. And I think this is a consistent practice in actually updating things, similar to your health, right? You want to get back in shape or you want to get shredded and have a six pack. Well, if you get shredded and have a six pack and then you don't work out for 3 months, guess where that six pack is going? It's going back wherever it came from. And so I think for me personally, I know a lot of times when I talk with clients about this, they say to me, oh, okay, well, how long is this going to take? Or how long until this is up and running? There is an operations creation piece of your business. And then there's an operations maintenance piece of your business. But there will be multiple operations creation kind of systems put into your business, meaning, what got us from, 200,000 to 500,000 in revenue isn't what's going to get us from 500,000 to a million and, a million plus, right? We're going to use similar tactics, but different mechanisms inside of the business to be able to assess and do that. So some items to consider, right? How do we position proposals? Getting the payment details and the timeline down, again, creating consistent, stable services means that, some of the tactics that Marcel explained in his last video, are we, consistent on our pricing? Is everything that's involved always what's involved? Or do we feel like we're constantly taking on these 10K website builds and then somebody adds 9 or 10 things, off to the side here, and then there it goes eating into our profit margins, but we feel like we need to do it in order to keep the person? Should we just bake that in and then make this a $12,000 program? How does this work, right? So how do we set up projects? Again, eliminating that administrative headache. How are we reporting? Another administrative thing that really needs to be sorted out. And I know that data visibility is something that Marcel and I are super, super keen on, to making sure that this is a really, really, really simple, issue to identify if ever there is one. And are we offering, again, the same deliverables, right? We want to make sure that payments, administrative setup, all that stuff administratively is the same, and that the deliverables of the projects are the same. One simple goal, again, consistency. And one thing I would mention, again, food for thought, is just wonder, does every client that I onboard have the same onboarding experience? And think through it too from a timeline perspective, right? If somebody onboards on a Monday, do they get the best of us, right? Are we all there? Are we all on? If somebody onboards on a Friday, are they going to wait 3 or 4 days to get certain information that they might need if they're working over the weekend and want to get some things started? So my encouragement to you is to try to think about how you can make things as consistent and also consistent as possible. So part 2, what are the key elements? What makes a service consistent? So we have profitability, which Marcel covered, reliability, and experience, right? So if we have a consistent, right, profit, which is kind of our North Star, right, which is what we talked about, in the last installment from Marcel, is really the numbers don't lie, right? What's in your bank account and what you're taking back, that is where you need to begin, right? And what we need to do is put that on one side of the equation and then solve for the other side, right? And so what I'm here to do is give you some tips and some tricks and some tactics to say, okay, if our profit isn't coming back the way that we really want it to come back, maybe it's because we don't have consistent offers. And maybe it's because we also take on way too much at one time, overload our team, and then projects get behind. Or maybe our, experience, our timeline for clients is a little bit off, right? And so maybe what we're doing is estimating a 6-week website build, but what we really should be doing is estimating a 10-week website build. And so those types of things are what is absolutely going to put some money back in your pocket and really just uncover some of that stuff inside of your business, some of that junk, right? That you can kind of eliminate some of the friction points that are really keeping people away from either retransacting with you or staying in the agency, for a long-term period of time. So what can you implement, right? What are some of these key tools? So under the reliability section, this is my first and foremost step. Again, when we talk about starting simple, the very first thing you want to do to make a service reliable is to create standard operating procedures. Now, a lot of folks think that, if a business is in flux, why are we writing things down? That sort of thing. I hear you. What we want to do is we want to make sure that at the base level, what you are providing to clients is written down in a way that can be followed step by step. Reason being, we want to work you out of the business as the founder, right? If the founder is the person who is really working through a lot of the core elements of fulfillment right now, we want to make sure to work the founder out of the fulfillment as much as humanly possible, because it's just not scalable to have everything be on one person. It just isn't. And additionally speaking, if you have a person or two who are helping with a lot of these things, but it feels really ad hoc and it feels like every project is custom or that, is kind of happening, what we really want to do is we want to say, okay, what are the big things we're providing? Let's write those down in our standard operating procedures, our SOPs, and then make sure that when the time comes where we want to say, hey, listen, it's time for us to accept more clients, right? This has gone past, our 3-man shop, and we really want to expand past that. We want to be able to tap somebody on the shoulder and say, here, take this document that I've created for you, and please go get this result for me. This will absolutely decrease the cost that you have of training a new person, decrease the cost of efficiency inside of your business, and absolutely decrease the administrative headache of pretty much doing any task in the business once you've gotten standard operating procedures for a lot of core elements for the way that you operate, right? You don't have team members coming to you asking, well, what should I do with blank? Or how do I do blank? Or any of those things. We really need to start to create a centralized Google or a hub for our business where a team can go and get access to items that they need, right? Examples of past projects, that sort of thing. And we'll kind of get into some of those additional items in a second. So quality control, this is huge as well. And I think that when I was actually talking with one of my clients recently, they were like, look, the business is so crazy and we are constantly accepting new opportunities and new things. And it seems like we are doing some things the same, but a lot of stuff is also changing. And so what I personally feel is the second kind of biggest important thing for, reliability inside of the agency is first and foremost creating a standard operating procedure. And then second is a list of standards, right? So if we are delivering work, let's just say that's website work or blog work or whatever that specifically is going to be for you, creating a list of standards and how things need to be shipped, right? So things need to be in X font, X format, X voice for blogs, right? Things need to make sure that we have X, speed or X plugins, pulled into the website, or this is how a website should be framed. Before clients see work, no matter what's going on behind the scenes, it's kind of that proverbial, like you have everybody over for the holidays and then you like shove everything in that hall closet, but then like the baseboards and everything are done and everything looks really nice and it's all decorated. Like, what does that look like? What are we shoving in that closet, at least for now, right? To just make sure that the client has a great experience. And what are those core deliverables? If I was having somebody come in and clean my house, my big bugaboos are dust around the home. Additionally, the baseboards. So like if I had to pick like two things that I needed to communicate to a person who was coming in to do something on my behalf, what would those things be? And so this is a really, I find, accessible place, that I've, gone through with my clients in the past, and they feel like they can easily communicate some of these quality efforts again to make things more reliable. And I mentioned this before, but training your talent is absolutely going to be so much easier and so much cheaper. When we start talk about capacity planning too inside of an agency, a lot of folks will say, oh, well, we just need to know when to hire another person. We need to know what the indicators are. And I totally hear that. I understand that. And I get that that is a valid concern in terms of being able to have a frictionless way to scale. But once we get somebody into the business, it's almost like we're giving them this tool, but no training on how to use it, right? Like I'm handing my team member a sword, but I haven't given them any direction in where we're going or how to use that or anything like that, right? He's just standing there now with a sword and he's like, well, what do I do? And so it's a little, I think, putting the cart before the horse, pulling somebody into the business when we don't have something to give them to say, hey, listen, this is what we expect from a baseline. And here are some of the things that you can start doing today. It helps make them ROI positive on day one. It really, again, decreases some of the friction in getting them integrated into the team. And it'll be really helpful to generate a really reliable service for you, because then you know that if you decide to take on, from 10 to 30 clients, you can be in a position to get somebody onboarded really quickly and they can start to generate some of the same results, as perhaps somebody else on your team. All right, let's talk about experience. So project management, this is also huge. I know that a lot of agencies bounce, back and forth between project management tools, or they'll just say, hey, listen, I'm going to send a scope of work, and then we'll just translate the scope of work right into the project management tool. And everything feels really custom. My opinion is like set a project template for your core service. So if you're following along and like working on this alongside me, if you are in a position where, let's just say you're building websites and you're working on your, core kind of web service, let's just say it's 10K, like what is available inside of that service? And if you have, like a package description or something that you send over to clients, it's going to be really helpful. Some past scopes of work, even looking at some of the past projects that you've done, like what are the 80% of the things that are always included? And then you might even decide to have kind of like a special order section that perhaps increases the cost of whatever your website build is, right? If someone wants a membership area, right? I know that's a huge one for my agencies. That's a big one that they can, add on, but I mean, it's additional cost, right? And so you don't want to get, 3/4 of the way through the project and then be like, oh, well, I also want a members area. And then you say, okay, well, great. That's another $5,000. And this is how this works and whatever. So I think confidently too, being able to pull in into your project management tool, just a really, really consistent way that you are, generating some of these results. And then that way your team feels like things are really consistent and projects overall are being interacted with in a way that is really frictionless, right? I mean, if you jump into 3 different projects in an Asana account, all delivering the same service and they're all set up a different way, you're going to take an administrative second to get used to how whoever set up that project and how their brain works and where those files might be and how those tasks are updated. Creating something centralized that's consistent and really easy to issue is going to, again, decrease that administrative friction and put some money back in the agency's pocket. Communication, huge one. What we want to do is we want to make sure to create basically 2 communication streams within our agency. So the first is within our team, and the second is with our client. And so here's how we're going to do that. Inside of your project management efforts, when you begin to kind of whiteboard out exactly what's included, you also want to start to think through some timelines, right? I mean, clients want to know that probably first and foremost, right? What can you do for me? How quickly can you get it done? And I think if we start to bake that into how we communicate internally and really be intentional about that, it's going to be huge for us. Something else that I will mention is that being proactive in communicating with your clients versus reactive is going to put you at a greater advantage, especially when you get, like, I'm sure we've all gotten them, these hectic, where is my thing? What's going on here? Client emails where they've seemed to have mounted a gigantic case against you and whatever it is that you're providing them. But really what we're just trying to do is eliminate some of the jargon or the behind the scenes terms that they may not even be able to access. They don't even understand what's going on. And so creating a way to be proactively, communicating with them is huge. I personally do with my private clients, I communicate with them twice per week. And so one of the big things that I always ask my clients when I first kind of engage with them is I say, what is the most important thing to you? Like, why are you doing this now? And what is really important for you to see? And I call it their king metric, right? What's the one thing that we can talk about every week? And if you know it's trending in the right direction, you're going to know that this is valuable and that you can sleep at night. And so establish that. Just ask your client, right? Just ask them what they want. And I think for the most part, we try to, really be the experts and say like, okay, yeah, this is exactly what you need, which I totally wholeheartedly agree with, especially as an agency owner. But what we want to do is we want to make sure to also tell them like, hey, listen, I'm going to lead you on the path that I know is successful, but I also want to make sure that you're here with me and present and like enrolled in the fact that this is the right path for you, right? And I'm the person to get you there. And so I think establishing a king metric and a communication schedule that you communicate to them being your client in advance, is huge. Additionally, I huddle with my team for 15 minutes every week, and it's all about clients. We just say, hey, listen, what's going on with clients this week? Anything I need to address? Anything needs to be on the top of my radar? Anybody I need to, maybe have an extra touch point with? And really, it's just that, right? It's a really quick thing. All the rest of our communication is done either in Slack or in the project management tool. It's one or the other. And we usually will sync up our Slack channels with our project management tool as well, which is another kind of insider way to make sure that everything stays in one location and is as frictionless as possible. Again, we talked about this briefly, but standardizing your timeline is huge. I think to build trust within your team and to build trust with your clients, standardizing the timeline is amazing. And it can really, really be a helpful tool to, again, just establish that, that relationship and make sure that, they're getting results when they basically intended to get results. Something that's really, really interesting that I find is another kind of core process within agencies that gets a little muddied and kind of detracts from the bottom line is revisions and getting things back on time for the most part and getting feedback from the client. I think that something that I worked on with an agency a few years ago to do is to put in a couple of things. So 2 things for the revisions process. The first is to make sure that we're giving our clients a list of what is meaningful feedback. I worked with a branding agency one time and they were doing some of the stuff that you now see on Operations Agency's website. And I was like, hey guys, I'm really loving this, but is that helpful feedback? Like just that I love it. What are you looking for from me? Are you looking for comments specifically on font? Are you looking for comments specifically on coloring, icons, that sort of thing? It was a really, really helpful experience for me, especially in my service of agencies, in this vein. I was like, hey, what do you want to hear from me? What would be the most valuable thing for me to get back to you so that you guys can iterate on it as quickly as possible and get me something that I feel better about in the long run, right? And so having a list of things to comment on, especially if you're a creative agency or you're delivering web work or building any sort of pages at all, you want to be in a position where you can kind of guide your clients to give the answers that you really have questions to, right? I think that overall clients come back with likely vague information. And so either you have to meet or you have to go back and forth 9 or 10 times. Again, administrative weight. We want to kind of pull that time out. Additionally speaking, the second thing that we'll usually do is give them like a little Cinderella clause. Say, hey, listen, got the first version of your website up. It's going to be live for 48 hours in this version. And I would accept feedback until that time. Or you can give them 2 rounds of feedback or 3 rounds of feedback. When we get to the end of projects, a lot of times with my agencies, we're in a position where things just start flying all over and everybody starts thinking through, oh my goodness, I don't know how this looks, or I'm nervous, or I want this comma moved to this place. And all of a sudden someone starts feeling like the clock is running out and suddenly they have 9,000, revisions on the project. And so standardizing the timeline, standardizing the revision process, making sure that you're teeing them up to give helpful feedback. And additionally, again, giving them a really solid timeline to do that. So we talked about profit. Marcel went in kind of detail on last video, but I'm going to just highlight it here. So we want to make sure that we're reporting really, really meaningfully, meaning that we have visibility into the business, creating a handful of key metrics. We want to make sure to track revisions. I just kind of went through that, and then make sure that you are following the pricing grid that Marcel did at the end of his video. So next steps, how does this happen? How do we actually implement this? So the first big thing that you'll need to do is document. I have a toolkit at operationsagency.com. I'll share that slide here in just a couple of slides. But really what you want to do is you want to start to get some of the core things that your service is offering down on paper, right? Start with your onboarding process. Just start really, really simple and say, how can we take our onboarding process from, let's just say 2 weeks down to 5 business days or 6 business days. And even just that, right? 1 working week, if everybody's working part or full time from a contracting perspective, even if it's just that administrative load that you are pulling off on, you are going to start to see the profit in your projects uptick. I personally, I've seen it with almost every agency I've worked with, and just focusing on that specifically is going to be huge. In my toolkit, I have an SOP template that you can kind of go through and just walk through. I also have an example of an onboarding process that I use at my very own agency. It's very, very in-depth and can really help whiteboard out and really kind of, root your, onboarding process inside of that kind of experience. You can do that again with me at operationsagency.com, download the toolkit. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being committed to, up-leveling your operations and really being intentional about the way that your business functions. I am really, really excited. This is my life's most exciting work. I love getting folks, behind the scenes really organized. They can feel really confident. I have seen so many people's lives just completely transformed. I'm actually right now reading The Magic of Tidying Up. I think it's not the full title, but it's kind of the title, by Marie Kondo. And in her new foreword, because she sold like a ton of copies of this book, right? And everybody wants to get organized. Everybody wants to clean up, but they feel like they get organized and they get pushed back on, and they get organized and they push back. And her system was really, really helpful in helping a lot of people not only get organized, but also show up more confidently in other areas of their life. They get promotions, they lose a bunch of weight, they get in better shape than they've ever been in, they crush a bunch of goals either at work or in college or whatever it is that they're working through. And it's all because they come from this, back of house place of comfort and confidence, right? They're able to say, all right, I'm going to leave my home and all is shored up back there. Like, I'm good. I'm going to re-enter back into my home and everything's going to be where I left it. And I'm going to be able to find all my stuff. And it really does build confidence going into other areas of your life, right? Operations is the same way inside of your business. If you know that everything is firing on all cylinders behind the scenes, you know that if you sign a client at some random business meeting and you just text your employee or whatever that's going to be, and all of a sudden, everything's just taken care of behind the scenes, that is freedom. That is absolute confidence and ability to go out and get whatever it is that you want from a goals perspective. And I really am excited for that for you. I'm really excited to meet tomorrow and be on a live Q&A to take your questions about any of this stuff. Go and grab the toolkit, or you can reach out to me at Allison@operationsagency.com with any questions that you have, or you can show up live tomorrow to ask them to me and Marcel. Thanks again for joining. Take care.